Yo, this is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you for joining the Moana Nui Podcast. This is Dana. I know you're probably wondering, hey, we're missing someone. Unfortunately, Moana is overseas for work, so I will be handling tonight's episodes. Thank you if you joined earlier for our 7 o'clock session that we had with voice actor AJ Beckles and also Zeno Robinson. If you did miss those episodes, you can watch the recording on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and on Facebook on our platforms. But before we get started, tonight we are having a very special episode. As you heard last month, the Moana Nui podcast is starting a brand series on the podcast based on the feedback that we got from everyone in the audience. We are starting a professional and personal development series that we can help better our community. We surveyed all of you and we teamed up with Sue Ann Hong, the CEO of the Center of Asian Pacific American Women, or CAPAW, to provide talent and personal development series. This will be on the third Thursday of every month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where you'll get tips and advice on various professional, talent, and personal development topics that our audience voted for. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and bring to the forefront the woman of the hour who is overseeing this series, Miss Sue Ann Hong. Hello, Sue Ann.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Talent Thursday. And I'm excited to be here with all of you. And I have some incredible guests tonight. So I can't wait to bring them forward.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to introduce our first panelist. Our first panelist, Jensen, Senior Program Specialist, Advocacy and Community Outreach, joined the AARP Georgia team in 2016 with over 19 years of experience in volunteer recruitment and human resources. Her responsibilities included volunteer management, training, and program implementation and advocacy. She is also the liaison to 39 volunteer led AARP chapters across the state of Georgia. So now help me, everyone, welcome Jenny to the panel for tonight. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being a part of today's episode. We're so very excited to hear your point of view on today's topic. And next we have is, let's see, I am going down. All right. Uh, um, Eileen started her career as a management consultant at Accenture, working with clients including Bristol Myers, uh, PepsiCo, and Cargill. In 2011, she started Venture for America, a national nonprofit and fellowship program for recent grads to launch their careers as entrepreneurs. As a COO over VFA, first 6 years, she grew the company from 2 employees, 40 fellows, 5 cities with a $200,000 budget to 35 plus employees, 800 plus fellows, 18 cities, and an 8 million budget. She is now the co-founder of the Lola, a member club and community for women, creating space to help women invest in themselves, grow professionally and personally, and drive change culturally. The Lola's first location opened in the fourth ward across Ponce City Market in Atlanta in July 2019. So help me also welcome our next panelist. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of today's
Hi.
panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. And finally, our last panelist, she served as a lead advisor for Chick-fil-A's corporate social responsibility and community affairs as an experienced and certified project management professional with 15 years of IT experience. She has led many CSR, technology, marketing, analytics, and strategic projects across various disciplines and multiple industries. She's passionate about using her business and technical skills to help social entrepreneurs and nonprofit organizations grow and scale their impact and organization in order to take good care of children, families, and communities. Help me, everyone, welcome Angeline for being a part of today's panel.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for including me in this great conversation.
Well, thank you all for your time and definitely your expertise on this panel. And now I'm going to hand it over to Sue-Ann to start this awesome conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. And what an incredible opportunity, everyone, to hear from these amazing women who have had so much experience. And what I love about this conversation is we have the different sectors covered. So you're talking nonprofit, corporate, entrepreneur. We have vast amount of experience with these incredible ladies. So, the other thing that I was laughing about right before this is when Eileen and I were going back and forth earlier today, and she's like, I might have kids jumping in, and I'm thinking, well, that is the reality. So, we are all about keeping this very real in our conversation today. So please don't hesitate to ask questions, and there's no off limits in terms of, I think, just topics around, especially time management, which is such an incredibly important thing right now. So let me start off with Angeline, just to have you introduce yourself a little bit. You're not only just about your career, but really maybe a little bit around your heritage.
That's great. So I was born in Taiwan, moved to the States with my family. We immigrated here when I was 6. So I speak fluent Mandarin Chinese as well as Taiwanese. I have a family of, I'm the middle child in a family of 3. I have an older sister and younger brother. I do have a son that's 16 years old right now. So he's in high school getting ready to apply to colleges this fall. So I'll be an empty nester soon, which sounds kind of strange at this time to be an empty nester. Be looking forward to that in about a year or 2. But I do enjoy spending time with him, and he's a joy to have around the home as well. With the pandemic, a lot of virtual learning, and then a lot of time spent at home as well. So when you talk about time management, that's a little bit of my time spent with family as well. Professional background, I graduated from Georgia Tech and started in IT, did IT work for about 15 years. And then before I moved on to corporate social responsibility and community affairs about 5 years ago.
Wonderful. We're going to unpack your background a little bit more. Eileen, how about you, your heritage and your background?
I am a native New Yorker, born and raised. So I always get this wrong. I think it's first generation Korean American. My parents immigrated from South Korea in the 70s, and my older brother, and I grew up in New York. So I am a transplant, have been in Atlanta for about 5.5 years. Joke around that we lived in Manhattan and Brooklyn for 15 years, and New York City tends to delay becoming an adult. And we bought a place in Brooklyn thinking, oh, we'll start a family here. It was a 3rd-story walk up. Not sure how that would have worked with strollers and Costco runs. So we moved to Atlanta. My husband is in the digital marketing world. He got his kind of dream job offer here. So we moved and did all the things that we didn't do in New York. We got our first dog, and then a few months later had our first daughter, who's now 4. And then we had a pandemic baby who's 1. So I part of me is excited and dreams of being an empty nester, but I know it's going to go so quickly. I feel like I'm in the thick of it. It just, yeah, like my time is not my own. So time management is something I've always been interested in, but it's taken a new meaning with 2 kids under 5 years old. Yeah, I'm excited to chat, and I love the different backgrounds that we all have.
Well, I certainly appreciate your background, especially because you're doing something very unique with the space for women. So we'll get to that in a little bit too. Jensen, can you share with the audience your background, please?
Of course. I am a Hapa. My father is Caucasian from the wonderfully cold state of Wisconsin, and my mother is Thai. I was born and raised overseas. My dad had a career with the State Department, and I didn't come to the U.S. to live until college. So sometimes I've felt like a stranger in my own country of passport sometimes, but you adapt like we all do, and you make the best of it. I've been in Atlanta now going on 6 years. I've unintentionally lived my adult life in the South, 15 years in North Carolina, and now Atlanta. Went to school in Wisconsin, which was an experience in itself, and decided I didn't want to be cold and kept moving south. So I've also been in nonprofits pretty much my whole career. And, you make do with a lot of different things, having, not having, looking for discounts, wearing multiple hats, taking on roles that you never thought you would be taking on. Like I learned accounting by pure accident at one of my jobs because we didn't have an accountant to pay the bills. So, it's always fun and never boring.
Absolutely. You are the president and the janitor in a nonprofit. That's what I say. So let me start with this first question right off the bat around time management. And that is, what do you struggle with the most when it comes to time management? I'm going to start with Angela.
Getting sidetracked. So I might have a plan in place. My biggest challenge is keeping my time sacred for what I had planned for. It's when you get pulled left and right, sometimes you just kind of forgo what you have planned, and then you get pulled, and it's kind of hard to say no. I think having that sacred time that you do put aside is probably pretty important. But that's my biggest challenge, being able to have that sacred time and that white space time to do what I need to do.
What would you consider like something sacred that you can't, like you don't want to move? Like, what is that?
My personal devotion time really helps me to reflect on where I'm at, what I want to achieve, and what I want to continue to do and not do, and how I can plan forward, how I want to be better. So my devotion time for sure.
That's amazing. Well, and that's very helpful because you need something to center and ground, right? Eileen, what about you? What do you struggle with the most?
Not having enough hours in the day. I think that's just the constant struggle, and even more so with kids. As far as time management, I feel like so many books and experts and hacks tell you just wake up earlier and be a morning person. And I think for decades, I tried that, and I have finally come to the conclusion that I am not a morning person. So that actually has been, quite helpful and somewhat productive. But I think for so long, I tried to be that person. And my sacred thing is sleep. If I don't get a good night's sleep, I'm not good to anybody. And if I wake up super early too, I'm tired probably by like 2 or 3 p.m. So I think that's just a constant challenge for me.
Yeah, and having like knowing yourself and what works for you is important too, right? Because I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work if you try to force it, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, and especially with I would imagine, I don't know what kind of sleep you get, especially with a 1-year-old, but I'm just saying, that
I know people have said, "Oh, don't worry, when you have kids, you'll start waking up early." I don't know what to say. We still don't wake up as early, thankfully, as a lot of other parents. I think my kids are not morning people either.
Oh, well, that's all. All right, Jenny, what about you? What do you struggle with?
People coming to me to help put out fires, and much like Angela, and I can't say no because, we're a team. We got to pull together. Even though I wasn't the one that created the fire, I'm always there with the hose to help put it out. And sometimes that can get frustrating too, because you have your own projects and deadlines. And so when the pandemic started and we came working at home, I told myself, you have to learn how to say no. I can help you. I'm more than happy to help you. But maybe if I teach you how to do X, Y, and Z, or you pull me in earlier into the planning process, we can help put out these fires that crop up. And that's been kind of helpful. But still, I'll get pulled into the burning building.
Absolutely. And it's not like you can easily say no to those situations, right? So part of it is that. So I'm going to take a question already, just because I think we need to get our audience involved. So it says, I'm an executive assistant and a mom. How can you observe work-life balance and set boundaries for yourself? Woohoo! This is the secret. How do you set boundaries for yourself, Eileen?
Just hearing executive assistant, I think that's a tough one because I think the expectation is that you are always responsive. So as much as it feels, uncomfortable and maybe not well received at first, I feel like you have to say, during these hours, I will not be as responsive, but during these work hours, I will get back to you within an hour or something. I think the pandemic has helped me say no way more. I've not been good about it either, Jenny. But I think slowing down and really, getting the opportunity to be present at home with friends and family. I'm like all about saying no now. Someone said that they really wanted me to do a meeting on a Sunday, and I very quickly and very respectfully turned it down because I said, like, I need to rest right now. I'm like, my husband's traveling all week this week. I'm like, when he comes back on Saturday, Sunday is my day. So I think it's, I feel like I've become more attuned with myself and my limits. And that's allowed me and helped me to figure that out. I also track, and I've started doing this year. I've realized 10 meetings a week is like a good number of meetings for me to then allow for time to actually get work done and check emails. And then I've noticed, I'm trying to notice more things. And again, the pandemic and it being more quiet has helped me with this. When it reaches 13, 16, that's when I feel like I'm becoming fried. I can't get anything done. My inbox is getting ahead of me. People keep on asking me to do stuff, and I just feel like my to-do list is piling. So being real surgical about how you sort of track your time and set those boundaries has helped me.
I love that. So are you talking about like 10 1-hour types of meetings or just 10 meetings period?
10 meetings period. So more or less an hour, because I feel like they go over, especially when they're in person now. On Zoom, you can get it done in 30 minutes. But
Absolutely. I love that you actually kept track, so you have a range that you know, and that's very interesting, very helpful that you're actually keeping track. What about you, Jenny? What methods do you use?
I tend to say, if I'm going to start work at 9, I need to be done by 5:30. Or if I'm doing something at night that's work related, I'll come in later the next morning. And I've also found if I need to really concentrate and write something, like I'm drafting or run a show or a speech, I just put a big block of time on my calendar and don't accept any phone calls, don't check emails. I actually shut my email off. Otherwise, you'll never get those big thinking things done. But sometimes it's also hard if someone calls, hey, I need this. But if you stick to your guns, your colleagues will start respecting your time more.
Absolutely. People respond to how you respond, right?
Yes.
And refer to that white space. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is that block of time where thinking is working, by the way, everyone. Thinking's working. So sometimes you need to do that, but I like that, the fact that you're kind of more calendar driven. It sounds like more like you actually block things. I have to block lunch out sometimes. I don't know.
I do that too.
Yeah. So how about you, Angeline? What are your methods and techniques?
You really have to set boundaries. I think if people expect that you're not going to answer be on a certain time, or they know that you're going to be out for a certain time that you won't be available. You have to set those boundaries. I've heard of people blocking off time on the calendar for certain tasks. Doing that helps, but you want to make sure you don't block off so much time that people can't reach you, right? Because people need to be able to communicate with you. They need to be able to, you need to get timely updates as well and work with people. And so don't block it away so that you don't have room for those relationships and conversations and those networks. I've also heard people say technology, it's great, but it's also a detriment to your social, your well-being. We're so hooked onto our cell phone that is kind of hard to pull away from it. And so I've heard folks, they'll have maybe no technology Saturdays from a certain time period to a certain time period, or even Fridays. After 3:00 on Fridays, I don't touch my cell phone or any technology, my laptop, until maybe noon of Saturday. I haven't tried that yet, because I find that when I unplug like that, is really hard when I come back, because then I get bombarded with too much stuff. So you have to kind of adjust and see what fits you.
Yeah. Well, and also it depends on the industry you're in too. Like when I worked at, insurance company, you can't really turn that off, in certain times, because customers don't care, when they have an accident, right? So you have to make sure you're there. But so let me ask a question about what a typical day looks like. So Jenny, for you, what does a typical day look like?
Oh, it's changed so much. In person, it could have been anything from get into the office, meet with volunteers, start your planning meetings. Now we do it all virtually, which takes a little less time, but we're getting ready to go back in person next week. So all that's going to change too. And my day is never the same, which is the fun part of what I do. I'm never bored. One day we could be, hey, we're planning a luncheon for women leaders in Atlanta. And the next day it's, hey, we're planning a meeting for our volunteers just to get them up to speed. So you never know. Or we're going to go and have a table at a health fair down in DeKalb. So it's never boring, which is one of the things I like about it. So
yeah.
That's my typical day.
Or you get a call about being on a panel, like for time
Exactly.
management, as an example.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. What does your typical day look like, Eileen?
Mine's pretty boring and the same every day. We have a wonderful nanny. She's in her mid-20s, so she's supposed to come at 8:30, but she generally doesn't. She's late. One of the pitfalls, but otherwise a wonderful caretaker. So I usually wake up with the kids, make sure the baby is changed and fed, and once our nanny comes, walk the dog. And I, during the morning, it's like clear the dishwasher, make the coffee. I try to do a smoothie with like protein powders and some healthy stuff to get into my body. And then, depending on how all of that hashes out, 9:30, get to the computer. I used to go to our space. It's a women's club and community for professional women 5 days a week. And the pandemic hit, we shut down and have still, are working our way to rebounding. But it's also allowed me not to go every day, which is nice. So I'll go in about twice a week now. And depending on, in-person meetings, I'll go. When I mentioned my, 10 meeting sweet spot, one of the time management tips I've been told was like, pick certain days. So the same days, like Tuesdays and Thursdays are your meeting days every week. And that never worked for me because of, I think what Jenny mentioned, stuff would come up and I'd meet new people, potential partners, members. I'd want it to be a little bit more flexible. But the 10 meetings has also helped me say, okay, I try to fill up 2 or 3 days of the week with meetings and then protect. Today, someone asked me to do a meeting. They said it's really important. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have any meetings today. I'm protecting that time so I could get focused work done. And then I also try to work out. I started going to this infrared sauna place, and I don't know if I believe the benefits, but it's the best way to get out of the house, away from the kids. You can't bring your phone into it, and you just have to sit there. It's not that comfortable, so I wish it were more relaxing, but I did that today. And I just have to completely unplug and just sit there with my thoughts and try to take deep breaths. And I've realized that that's a great forcing function to have. So I try to do that once a week. But for me, I got to run home 5:30, relieve the nanny, get dinner, and then bedtime 8 until 8:30, usually at night.
Yeah. And then also, again, get on a podcast.
Right. And then jump on the podcast.
After you put the kids to bed. That's what I'm talking about, you know. Angela, how about you? What's your typical day?
So I'd like to wake up early to have my son, to kind of greet my son before he goes off to school. So we'll have breakfast. We might not always have it together, but I'll make sure while he's eating, I'm kind of sitting there with him, chatting a little bit, you know, get him off to a good start, even though he's a teenager now, but that's kind of our time together. And then after that, I'll try to do some morning devotions and then get the day started. With the pandemic, it's been nice because I save 2 hours of drive time. I have more time to do that in the morning. So that's nice to do that before work. Yeah. And then throughout the day, I'm kind of like Jenny. I get to do a lot of different things, sometimes at nonprofit organization sites and meeting with them. Sometimes I'm in the community, sometimes at the work office, sometimes I'm working from home. So it really depends on my tasks and the programs that I'm starting or piloting on what my day looks like for work. And then when I come home, you know, we'll have dinner. My husband will usually start dinner first. If I'm at work, if I'm at home, then I'll start dinner. But then, you know, usually at night, my son is doing his homework. He's a teenager now, so I don't have to do much schoolwork with him. And so that's my time to start the Chinese dramas, the K-dramas, and, you know, binge watch on some of that. That's kind of like my winding down time.
Well, the fact that you have, like, you can insert that in there, I just love that. I love that. All right, let me take another audience question. It says, I love the representation of different industries. As leaders, how do you manage your time like male peers without appearing like you are slacking or unable to handle things? Whoa, that's an interesting question. Let me start with Eileen on that one.
Well, so I am in a very special industry where I support professional women, so our community, and I work with all women. So I can't say that I have male peers, maybe other co-working community type places that are owned by men. This has just popped into my head, but I recently saw, I think it was Ali Wong's latest stand-up, and she was talking about, I'm going to get this wrong, but basically like, if she had a wife, if we all had wives, we would be like way more successful and have our stuff together. So I can't say that I am appearing like my other male peers because stuff happens all the time. On Monday, you know, my mom comes to help in the afternoon, but she had to go to the dentist for an emergency. So I randomly just had to stop working, you know, from 3 p.m. on. And it's just, it happens. I am at this point quite unapologetic when that happens. I didn't happen to have any meetings, took them to the playground after bed, signed on and got whatever I needed to get done. So it might seem like I'm slacking at things because I was, you know, unresponsive during that afternoon block. But I think for me, people know if, as long as you're a reliable person, they know and they trust and respect working with you, that you'll get things done and you'll get back to them.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, plus you were in corporate world before, right? So, mm-hmm. I mean, you were with Accenture. And so you had some of that, but you didn't have kids then, right?
No, it was hard.
So, yeah, it was a little different. Angelin, what about you from a corporate perspective? You know, there's a lot of perception that women, I think for women and women of color, that we feel like we have to be actually seen.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think especially when I was in IT, in a pretty male dominant industry at that time, right? I felt definitely the pressure where I had to work a little bit harder, be there most of the time, pick up any work that folks might not want to do even. And so I think definitely in the IT industry in the old days, for sure. And also I was a traveling consultant. So I was full-time, but I traveled as a consultant. And so that gave me that, you know, you have that work ethic where you're at the client side, you're working long hours. And that was kind of okay when you're young and you're single and you're not married, but not so much when you're married and you have a kid. And so really, I think what works for women is really just to find that balance yourself and set that boundary. And really, when people see that your work output is not affected by how long you stay in the office or how you work, when they see the great work you're doing, it doesn't. They're a lot more able to work with you in terms of how you need that flexibility.
Yeah. Well, results matter, right? And that's what you're talking about. But I did feel that pressure when I was working in corporate that I had to be seen like late at night or, out working. I just, part of it was me though, I think. Part of it was my perception of about what was hard work and, some of those values were coming into play. But Jenny, how about you?
Much like Eileen, my office is all women. Even though we are part of a larger, organization, our Georgia office is all women. So I think if you build your reputation out that you're someone that gets things done, then people don't have to worry about, I don't want to use the word nag, but nagging you. Hey, did you send in that contract? Hey, did you contact so-and-so? They already know you're going to get that done. So a lot of what this pandemic has done for our office is we've become over communicative, which is a good thing. Like, okay, Jenny, you're tasked with X, Y, and Z. Colleague over here is tasked with Q, P, and X, and then you get it done. I don't feel any, pressure or any oddness. They know I'm going to get it done. When it's done, I tell them, and we're fine. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I've handled things. I've been told that I do well with minimal supervision, so I think I'm doing something right.
Absolutely. And it made me think about, as you talked about, I think AARP is going back to work in person on March the 22nd, correct?
That's correct.
So let me ask, go ahead.
Our leaders, our higher senior level folks went back this week. So the rest of us are going back next week.
So for the three of you, and I think, you're in all different places when it comes to either a hybrid approach, still being virtual, or all in person. How is that impacting your ability to manage your schedules and kind of how are you adjusting? So Jenny, I'm going to start back with you.
Well, it's going to be a big adjustment, not just for us as staff, but also for our volunteers who have been doing, opening virtual events, doing the remarks, doing the closing. And of course, with COVID still out there in the world, there'll be more protocols in place about who can come into the office. All these paperwork and charts before we can actually do something. Look at the guidelines. Does it look like it's safe to hold an event at, let's say, area X? Time goes by. It looks like cases are rising over there. We may have to cancel or postpone it or make it virtual. So it's going to be a learning process for us as we move into the second quarter. But I think everyone's ready, though, to try something virtual and in person. So we will definitely see how that turns out. Hopefully good.
Yes, crossing our fingers. How about you, Eileen?
Good and bad. The results is going virtual and in person. For me, it's been a constant struggle and evolving from a family standpoint, having two kids that are who are still unvaccinated. We've been very cautious, but then at the same time, as a private business with a community of members that come and use our space regularly, trying to balance and communicate, how we continue to be vigilant, but it's been 2 years, everyone's tired and wants to move forward. So we talk, I feels like every few weeks about our mask policy, our COVID policy, how do we kind of come out of that while still making people feel comfortable. And I always have to balance, again, my gut reactions because I have two kids still with other folks who may not have kids or who have elderly parents or kids that are vaccinated. It's just a constant. We're trying to always put stuff out there from a business standpoint and get feedback as much as possible. But it does feel like now is, as Jenny mentioned, a good moment in time where people, for the most part, are ready to come back in person without sort of having any sort of thoughts of like pulling back drastically.
Yeah. How about you, Angeline?
We've gone to the hybrid model. So about 50% of your time you can work virtually, 50% of the time we want people to come into the office because you have to build those relationships. Your culture, your corporate culture kind of relies on people meeting together as well. And so don't forgo that. You want to, if everyone's virtual, it's kind of hard to maintain that culture. I think from a pandemic standpoint, we see studies where a lot of women have left the workforce. So you have to really be flexible in terms of how you work with that population. And even for men too, right? There's a lot of flexibility. I think with the pandemic, people have kind of started looking at other things that they're doing as well, whether with family. And so flexibility is a huge factor right now in retaining talent. That we have to make sure we're flexible in how we do that and how we hone in on flexibility in terms of schedule, work hours, ability to do other things as well.
Angela, you bring up a really great point about flexible work hours. I think I saw a study with the IWPR where they're, besides, healthcare and the things that they're looking for, flexibility and schedule was a huge factor in terms of for women, especially. So that's huge. So here's another question. It says, outside of my day job, I have my own business. I notice many creatives have a hard time managing their time for their own business and the full-time job with family life. What tips do you have on managing your time without overwhelming yourself? That's a good question. Anybody want to take that one?
We do have a lot of our community members, our community's majority founders and freelancers. And when you think about a founder, I used to assume that was their full-time job, but I think that's not the case for many, and particularly women and women of color. So interestingly, I'm amazed when someone's telling me about this, business that they're so passionate about, and then they also have a full-time job. I always do a double take, and they have a family. I'm like, how is that possible? So I think that's a struggle. That is a lot to manage and to figure out how to create boundaries. I'm so impressed by people who can do that. I've heard, one woman who has two kids, one's a toddler and the other one's, I think, a tween. She has her own side business, and then she's also a professor at Spelman. And she told me that her work days are Saturdays, but oftentimes I think her daughter's 13 or 14, she'll come with her. So I think she, oftentimes it's not boundaries as you compartmentalize your different jobs and personal life. It bleeds together. I find as a business owner, that happens a lot. Pre-pandemic, when I was running around in person 5 days a week, my daughter was in the back of the audience for a lot of our in-person events, and she rolled with the punches. She would eat snacks and have her iPad and headphones, and we just made it work. I think that after the pandemic, there's less of that. But even tonight, I told her I have to put her to bed a little bit early, and I just explained it to her, and it was 8:16. She said, my animals are downstairs. Will you go get them? Is that okay? I said, yeah. I came back up. She said, just tell them that you were putting Elodie to bed and you were a little bit late and you're sorry. So I think it's, you bring them in and they feel like empowered. She's 4, so I don't know. It depends on the age of the kids. But I think it's making all 3 work together.
Well, something you said, a lot of my friends who have, both parents working, they have kids, they have all kinds of things, side jobs. I call it the side hustle. And they're integrate. I think it's their ability to integrate is what's keeping them sane, right? And then trying to, so like I just laugh and I say, well, we could hire your kids as, like a staff or interns probably, even though they're only 12. Because they're with you all the time and they understand the business world because they're with you.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. So how about you, Jenny? What do you do? What advice would you have?
They're trying to get off mute.
You're off mute. You're good.
There we go. Since we don't have kids, but I have seen with the women that I've worked with, if their kids, they're still working and the kids come and hang out in the office. We have a break room with a TV. They do their homework. They come by and say, hey. I think it's great if that can happen. We've also had events where they've had to bring their kids, and we jokingly call them our youngest volunteers because they're there with us. But I think it's a hard balance. It's a really hard balance, I think, and I think it's people that can do it. They're super people to do it. I know it's not easy, and I don't have the personal experience with that, but just seeing friends and colleagues juggle kids, work, just life. It's all the balls are in the air moving at a rapid pace. And sometimes you just need someone to stand next to you to catch one of the balls.
I always say, don't drop the glass ball, right? Don't drop the, and by the way, sometimes it's just overwhelming, period. That's just and by the way, I don't have kids, but I have a dog who keeps me sane because the dog actually makes me get out of my chair and get outside and actually take a walk, because I could literally be sitting in Zoom all day if I didn't, because it's so easy not to get up, so I think that's the other side of it. If you don't have kids, you can just literally sit there all day. So how about you, Angeline?
Eileen, I think you bring your kids to work, and I think that is a great experience for them, actually. I think that's something that not all kids have the ability to do. So seeing their parents work and being involved in the business like that, that I think they're going to grow, and that's a great opportunity for them. But in terms of how if you're being pulled left and right, are there certain tasks that you can kind of shed off that are not as important, and kind of prioritize what is really important for you to do? And for the ones that are not as important, or maybe somebody else can do it, can you let somebody else do it? I know as an entrepreneur, sometimes, especially if you're starting out, it's kind of hard to hire someone else to do it. But could there be a less junior person that you hire part-time to kind of offload some of your tasks that you don't really need to be spending time on, for you to be able to do the bigger tasks, the more strategic stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I have to just block off, like today is a good example. Sometimes I have to be the package person. Like I literally had to take 16 packages of books that people want at our conference today. Like there's nobody to do it but me. But I have to block off time to do that. And I'm like, that's just going to have to be okay. I'm sorry, but I can only be in one place at one time. So sometimes I think you just have to give yourself grace, and that's just the way it is. Right. So, all right. So let me ask a little bit about, I don't think this is on here, but I wanted to ask about mental wellness a little bit, because that's kind of a hot topic right now with all of the isolation, the pandemic, the pressure on women, especially, all the elder care, children care, everything else. How do each of you make sure that it's, mentally, emotionally fit? Like, what do you do to ensure that happens? So Jenny, what do you do?
I do a few things. I read. Read is a wonderful escape for me. I especially like puzzle books or murder mystery books, the Agatha Christie's, those types of things. They're a nice escape from everything that's going on. Get outside, get in the sun, get some sunshine, just to get away from your desk. I have to make myself get up and walk around our apartment. Like Sue Ann, if you could sit there all day stuck on Zoom typing stuff. And I'm not ashamed to say it, every now and then I need to talk to a professional. There's nothing wrong with having a standing appointment with a counselor, just someone to listen to you. Not that your friends and family don't love you. They have buy-in to you. Sometimes you need to hear it from a third party to tell you, you know what? You're doing okay. It's going to be fine. Take care of yourself.
Why is it so hard to give yourself permission to have space or time? And like, I wonder why we're so hard on ourselves for some reason.
I think as women, we are raised that way, right? Like everybody does it all. They are the mom and you don't see anybody take a beat for themselves and they're still smiling. I think particularly, as Asian women, I was raised to think that it was incredibly taboo to talk to a therapist or a professional. And it took a long time for me to, basically disagree with that and then talk to somebody. I think it's phenomenal and always important to say and to share and to promote, because I think a lot of cultures still don't talk about feelings. You put your feelings in a box and then you keep it there and that's where they stay.
That is so funny. That's so true. Feelings, what the heck? What are those, right?
I think, especially if you don't know, sometimes something's off, but you're not sure. So I think having an objective third party is great. For me, I thought, my stress management, I generally feel like I have a high threshold, but during the second year of the pandemic, I realized I was clenching my teeth at night. And, that kind of freaked me out because that's never happened. And I went to the dentist and they're like, that's stress, like 100% that's stress. So I was trying to figure that out and try different things. And, for me, exercise definitely helps, especially if I'm tired or angry or exhausted. We're huge Peloton fans in my house. So we do all of their sort of exercises, but walks with the dog. Dogs are incredibly therapeutic. And then, I'm trying this dry sauna thing, this infrared sauna thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, and I know you do the devotional piece, but is there anything else that you do that, helps with the mental wellness?
Yeah, faith is definitely a strong part of me. So that's definitely number one. But I also like to go on hikes. I love to sing as well. And I love hanging out with youth. At church youth group, I help with my sons, the teenagers there. And so they keep you young for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and first of all, I was going to really put you on the spot and say, can you sing us something?
No.
I was going to start, like we could be your backup singers. But I thought, it's one of those things, though. Music is one of my go-tos for stress relief, because you can dance, you can there's something about that really helps kind of change your mood, I think. Yes.
Well, Sue-Ann, if you ever want to go karaoke, we can go.
Okay, I already broke out in a sweat just now. I'm just saying. It makes me nervous. That sounds, yeah. All right, so let me ask you this. So is there a particular tool or something that you do that keeps you very organized? Like now we're getting to the nitty gritty. So any specifics? So Angela, do you have something that you use that really keeps you organized? What is it?
Yeah, I'm a very organized and detailed person, and it kind of annoys my husband a little bit because I'm just too detailed. But I love shared documents. So we'll do a family calendar, a family Google Sheets and stuff. We have a side business. So everything is kind of shared on, so my husband can see it as well and my son can. Another thing I learned way back in college years ago in total quality management class is the engineering principle. If there are certain things you want to change, whether it's your behavior or certain things you want to do, you kind of track it. And so I've started doing that again, certain things that I want to make sure I do on a daily basis to grow myself, or certain things I don't want to do that I want to be mindful of. I'll start looking at that, if I want to change some habits, taking kind of similar to what you do with a little kid. When you're a little kid, you might have a chart and you say, okay, if you finish your food, you might get a little like smiley face. If you did something bad and you didn't say thank you, you get it, just to visually let them see things. And that's kind of my way of doing that if I want to change behaviors or learn new things or do something differently.
I like the family Google, and you're getting some comments on that, the Google Calendar, and share with those that depend on my availability, and OneNote as a collaboration on details and planning. I think that's great. What about you, Eileen? What tool would you share with the audience?
I'm a big project management tool nerd as well. I've been on Trello forever. You name it, I've organized it on Trello. Like when a group starts talking and they're throwing out lots of things, I tend to be like, I've created a Trello board for our trip or whatever it is. We use it at work on my team at the Lola as well. And then it's not just, I have a list. You can create different lists with cards. I have a personal one in there too, because I stare at that tab. It's open on my laptop every day. So again, I mix personal and professional. I wrote like text my mom something on Thursday. I have a list for Thursday and I do it just because I'll do anything that my list says. And then Google Calendar, I'm a big fan of. I just discovered, in addition to meetings, you can create tasks on your Google Calendar. I really like that. So I use that to block my time, whether it's like focus work, exercising, eating lunch. I ordered, dinner tonight. I wrote in my task, like order the food now. So it'll come before 6 o'clock. And then I can't remember the name, but my husband and I have been struggling with meal planning ever since we had our first daughter. And we use this meal planning app, and there's so many of them. All it does is give you, we plan lunch and dinner, what to pack for my daughter's preschool lunch and what to cook every night. And then we add the grocery list to Alexa, and then we go grocery shopping. So she just turned on. I knew I shouldn't have said that. That's been actually the biggest game changer as far as new tools in my life. And it's so simple. It's just this thing that we do. We try to do every Friday or over the weekend because we know we have to get groceries for the next week. But just having, I think he and I actually saw this behavioral health coach, and she helped us distill down. We both suffer from decision fatigue. So removing the decision. So in the moment, if it was like 4:35 p.m. and we didn't talk about dinner, we both would stress and become frazzled because, the choices are endless. But if we at least have a plan, we can change it. We can be nimble. So that's been a big game changer. Oh, I see.
Love
Someone
that.
said endless. Yeah.
Yeah, the
recipe.
meal planning and you said Trulia.
Oh, someone wrote any list. I think ours is called like meal share, something really simple.
Meal
And then I'm with Angela, and I started using Happify. I've used Habit Share. I'm like a kid. I love getting credit for things. So I try to do like 5 different types of, like 3 core strength workouts and like 2 long walks a week. And I track it. And I'm like insane. Sometimes I'll go to sleep and I'm like, wait, did I check it for today? Because I want to get credit for it or else it doesn't count.
That is so funny. That is so, there's like a personal achievement kind of a thing going on. It's you against you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jenny, what about you? What tool do you have to share?
Oh, I am so old school. I still like to-do lists that I write out. If I don't write something out, I tend to forget it. So I have a running handwritten grocery list. I have a notebook for work that I list. Like here was so before I start the day, I look at what I have to do. Like, okay, I can put that to the end. If this one needs to go to the top, then I can just check them off. And at the end of the day, I rewrite the list to see what I have to do tomorrow. It's something that's worked for me since I was about 13 or 14 years old. Sometimes it's organized chaos, but it works. So everyone has different ways of doing things. If it's tracking through an app, that works, do it. If it's handwriting it, do it. If it's using a Google Calendar, do it. Everyone's a little bit different. So whatever you find that works for you, stick with it.
I love it. Well, sometimes it comes down to good old fashioned paper and pencil or pen. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But at least prioritizing is the key here. My time management tip would be, if possible, don't touch that email more than once.
Yeah.
So basically you touch it and you send it to conclusion and resolve it. Some people will open it and then they'll not do anything and then they have to come back to it. My thing is, unless it's some big thing, you've got like a proposal or things you got to go back to, if you can touch it, take care of it, take care of it. That would be my tip. All right. So we have one other question. How can people not used to time management approach planning ahead? Who would like to take that one?
I think we all said different things. So I think it's finding what works for you, because I love the idea of paper and pen. The problem is I lose that list like 10 out of 10 times, or I forget to take it. So as much as I love that sort of like creative part of it, even bullet journaling seems really interesting to me. I have trouble remembering that thing except for my phone. So I think it's like start simple. If it's an Evernote or OneNote or Google Calendar or
You got
paper.
notes in your iPhone too. You got the notepad in your iPhone. That's sometimes what I use. Sometimes if I just need something to write down.
Yeah, I say start at the simple. Don't look at a fancy, there's so many different fancy ones out there. I would start really simple and figure out what works well for you and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I think in terms of approaching planning ahead, sometimes that planning ahead really requires you to understand what your priorities are first. So if you're doing your task or your, for time management, sometimes we put all these tasks, but then a lot of them aren't really priority tasks, right? And so now you spent time doing something that's really not a high priority or not really a purpose that you really need to be working that much time, spending that much time on. So I would say prioritize first, know where your priorities are first, what your goal is, and then plan your time based on the task that you need to accomplish that goal.
Angeline, that's so logical. All right. So Jenny, any other thoughts before I go around one last time with final tip?
Oh, time management is such a thing that it's just, I don't know, it's something that you have to learn. It's something that you have to start small. Keep a list, put it in your phone, sometimes even have multiple lists and put them together. But it's something that over time you get to learn it. Even with, hey, I have an event coming up in, let's say, the end of May. Start from the end date and work forward. What do you need to do? Make a milestone list. Sometimes that's the best, but work backwards. That's how I do events. I start with the end and work to the beginning of what you need to do.
That's kind of like, that's project management, right? What's
right,
the end, and then you back into it. So that's
right.
great. All right. So last round, we're getting to that time. So I'm going to give each of you a minute to just give your best advice when it comes to time management. What do you want to leave the audience with that they can actually do something with? So it's all about action, as I say. And so let me start with Angeline this time.
So think about what you want to be known for, how you want to spend your time based on how you want others to perceive you and how you want to contribute, and spend your time doing that.
I love it. It's about the quality. It's about being intentional, sounds like, is what you're saying. I love that. Jenny.
I agree with what she said. There's being intentional, being productive, make good use of your time. And if you do happen to slip while you're trying to figure out what works best for you, don't beat yourself up about it. Just stand up and do it again and find what works for you. There's no right or wrong way to manage your time. It's just what works for you in the end.
Absolutely. And by the way, I don't think, any of us are 100% productive every single day. That's not reality. So I also think about that in my mind. Sometimes I wonder if my mind goes somewhere, right? That's the reality. And I lost minutes, or I read the same paragraph twice. It's like, that just happens. So Eileen, what about you?
I was going to say, I feel like I'm going to be a constant work in progress and constantly like continuing to learn more about myself and what works well for me. Based on our conversation, I definitely want to say that work-life balance is a myth, and we're looking for optimal work-life integration. And I think it's very much all about knowing who you are and how you best operate and starting where you are, not aspiring to be a morning person when I ultimately know now I never, ever will be, and making incremental steps. I think there's a great quote that says, like, make 1% progress every day, and build that as a habit. Because once you build something in a habit, then you'll keep that up versus trying to make something extraordinarily different that really, isn't going to be supporting you as an individual. So starting where you are and then little baby steps.
I think that's so true. It's harder when you've got this lofty goal and you feel like a failure if you don't do it. So having those milestone incremental change, what is it, 30 days to make a habit? Is that right? And I think sometimes more, but But with that, you guys, this was an incredible conversation tonight. I'm so grateful that the three of you joined me tonight to talk about this very important and real topic about how we all manage time. And I so appreciate all of you. And so buy your Chick-fil-A, you guys, then go to the Lola, and then go help somebody at AARP. Okay. So that's what I want you guys to do. Go buy some fries from Chick-fil-A. Awesome. The waffle fries. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Dana.
Well, once again, thank you everyone for your time, your experience that you bestowed wisdom, and I give much kudos to Eileen with having a 1-year-old. That is a special talent of superwoman capabilities when you have two little ones under the age of 8. So I give you much kudos, and running a nonprofit. So much kudos. But I would like for each of you, can you provide the audience of how to either follow you or follow your business or your nonprofit, so they can keep abreast of what's going on, how to support and such. So can we start off with you, Eileen, since I just brought you up?
Yeah, no, thank you for your kind words, Dana. So would love for you to check out the Lola. We're across the street from Pond City Market in Old Fourth Ward. You can find more information about us at the-lola.com, LOLA.
Awesome. And Jenny?
We have a website called aarp.org/GA. You can go there for our virtual events and soon to be in-person events. You do not have to be a member to join any of our programming, and it's free. So please check us out.
That's good to know, because a lot of people get a little concerned. I know a friend, she was in her 30s, she got an AARP notification. She's like,
anyone can be a member from the age of 18 and onwards.
okay, that's good to know, because a lot of people like, I'm only 30. Why am I getting the
We have
AARP?
wonderful discounts, movies. Please join. Age is just a number.
Awesome. That's good to know. And Angeline?
So for Chick-fil-A, we have something called the Chick-fil-A Impact Accelerator, and this is a program for nonprofit leaders to join and kind of grow and learn from each other, leadership development. It is in partnership with Plywood People, which is another nonprofit organization. So if anyone wants to connect with nonprofit organizations, check out that website. It's www.chickfilaimpactaccelerator.com. All one word, no hyphens in there.
Awesome. And of course, Sue Ann, can you let them know how to keep up with CAPAW and all the things that they're going on with them?
Absolutely. You know what? CAPAW.org. I changed the website recently. We updated it. We now have the podcast in there as well. So very, very excited about that. And, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And so, yeah, check us out.
Awesome. Well, everyone, please definitely connect to all these amazing organizations and definitely keep abreast of everything they have going on, especially if you're in the nonprofit arena. Please definitely keep that website in mind. Go right to it. And then especially if you're a woman of color, definitely check out Sue Ann's organization. And then, of course, with Eileen, with her nonprofit as women, please definitely check that out. And of course, as Jenny says, if you're 18 and up, don't be afraid of AARP. Don't get that stigma. We're breaking that stigma. As long as you're 18 and up, you can join any of those activities. So once again, I thank all of you ladies for coming out tonight, giving your perspective, and definitely being part of tonight's panel. Definitely tune in once again on the third Thursday of every month at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for Sue Ann's series. We look forward to her next session, which will be on communication. If that's something that you deal with, you have difficulty, whether it's a loved one, a coworker, a lot of times you're thinking they're being very aggressive. They could tell you're aggressive and you're not, you're just being nice. This is something you need to tune in for to understand communication and perspective of how to deal with our loved ones, but also your coworkers at the same time. So everyone have a great evening, and also happy St. Patrick's Day for those that are wearing green. And have a great evening, everyone. Thank you again. And bye, everyone.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it cedar lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii in a perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
I'm Steve Bloom. I've been a voice actor for more than 30 years, playing characters like Wolverine, Starscream, Tank Dempsey from Call of Duty.
With Bloomfox Studios, I've learned so much about myself.
Learning to breathe, to no fear, to getting ugly in front of the mic.
One of the biggest changes I've noticed, at least for me, is how much my confidence level has gone up.
I've done an Eastern European video game, an e-commerce commercial, a documentary. If you're thinking about getting into voiceover, just do it. Jump in.